What's up, y'all? It's Xavier once again, live with the Unsaid. We bring in my guys Jamyle and Dion and Ernest on. We're going to be talking about what it means. We've had life going in, we've had life going out. So I want to just break that down a little bit, talk about what it means and what are the specific ways that as Black men we can really engage in that work of celebrating and joining in that work, potentially also grieving. So, yeah, stick around a little bit. I see E's coming in. Fellas, what's going on, man? Y'all can't hop in? I just see view request that says y'all can't join.
Hey, what's up, bro?
And there's E.
Man, Instagram makes it really difficult, right?
Yeah, man.
How we feeling over there?
I'm feeling how I look, man. How I look.
Well, I mean, if you say that way, you look horrible. Now I'm playing with you. Nah, man, it's good to see you, bro. What we talking about today, man? What we talking about? Where the other two at, man? What's going on?
Man, look, I've sent the request for them to join.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for them to get on. Yeah, Jamyle's in the room, but I'm not sure why he's not. I'm gonna hit invite again.
Last time I had somebody on a live, man, it was real difficult. It took about 15 minutes myself, so I'm glad we can get it done pretty quickly.
You know what I'm about to do?
They tripping. For my people that's waiting, y'all, let us know where you checking in from, y'all. What's good, everybody? Happy Friday. Happy 3-day weekend to some of y'all. Labor Day weekend is upon us. What's up, Black History 9465? Where y'all checking in from?
Yo.
Brother Dion. Oh, we all here.
There we go.
Here. The gang's here.
The whole gang is here.
The whole
Y'all know what?
is
Hey, Dion, man, you look like you calling from the DOC right now, man. You need some bail money? You need some...
Bro, hey, no.
He got the red light. He look like
man,
he got his
red light
on.
special going on.
Hey.
He got the white T-shirt. He ain't got his orange yet.
It took 7 seconds for y'all to start bullying me.
It's not bullying, brother. That is
no. I need to say the trigger words that can get people on my side. I'm gonna say bullying, okay?
My man Dion was in Aspen living the life, bro. I was looking at those pictures like my man was truly frolicking.
I think he saw a moose. I ain't never seen a moose before.
Man, bro, I'm mad because I went to Denver one time and Colorado's so beautiful, man. It's so beautiful, bro. I gotta play the
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Big Papa over here on the line.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? Jamyle had a new baby in the time we last had a live.
Yeah, man. We got two now. So now I got a 2.5-year-old and a 1-week-old. Life has been good. It's the snuggliest little baby you'd ever want in your life. So we're feeling good. Wife is recovering well, and I got my aunt in town. All the best food. So it's a good life right now.
Oh, that's what's up. Ain't nothing like that help.
That's beautiful, man. It's on those points that I want to start our convo today. I think last week's convo, it seemed to get a lot of attention, a lot of traction, a lot of folks. And one of the things I want to talk about this week, just in light of what's happened within our group, Jamyle has new life coming in. I've had life going out. I lost my aunt on Saturday and to cancer and such. And this idea and this thought around grief and celebration, Jamyle, I was looking at one of the posts that you put up about parental leave and how you was trying to get you was all stressed out about your kid, you know what I'm saying? And all she had to do, let a little bit of that air on out. But having the time to do that, but also one of the things that I love about what you said was your brain space, your mind space. Like, you're an executive director of an organization. You're responsible for people. And the question of your mental readiness and mental state, not just what you're responsible for producing for the organization, but the state that you're in mentally also affects that, and how having these policies in place like parental leave really supports that. For me, I'm CEO of a company called Justice Reform, and we have a bereavement policy, and it's a week off, and no need to ask any questions. It doesn't have to be like my last employer. It has to be a direct family member, so it's got to be your mama, your daddy, your brother, your sister. That's it. Anybody else not covered, you're going to take that unpaid time. You're going to dip off in some other way. And a lot of the things that I think as Black people and brown people we're trying to build are things we never got ourselves. We're trying to build the experiences for others that we don't always get ourselves. But as leaders, it's hard to even do it for yourself, even if you got the practice in place. Like, I did not take all my bereavement leave. Yeah. I'm at work right now. I'm supposed to be off, but the demands of our clients and the realities of our operations and needing to get stuff to our accountant, there are certain things that only I am responsible for and only I can sign off on legally and do that affect our organization and affect my entire team. So I gotta, it's that's part of the challenge. So I say all that just to start this conversation, right? Jamyle making and creating space for new life to celebrate it, but also to be a dad, and still, you got to be a husband too. You get to be a husband too, like serving and working with your wife. For me, serving and working with my team while I'm on a professional level, while I'm dealing with the personal, it just made me kind of zoom out. And I want to ask y'all this question. I want to break this conversation in today. First, do you actually have a strategy or the space to do celebrations, to practice grieving, or to take space when there's a loss, a real loss in your life, to your family, to your personhood, or otherwise? Do you have a practice for that, and do you have space for that? We're going to get to another question on the back end, but I think the first half of this convo, let's just focus on that. Do you have space for it? And if you do you have practices for it as a Black man, and what are they?
Yeah. When I'm thinking about that question, first off, when we talk about bereavement and parental leave, I thought about you even when I was making that video about parental leave, because what we're trying to do as a company really shouldn't fall on us as a company, but it should be, we're trying to make a replacement for community. And in an ideal world, a community will form around people who are grieving, who just had a child, to help create that space. And it wouldn't be on the company necessarily that they hear you all take this time, but it'd be an expectation of the community to come together. So I'm ready. You look like me right now.
That's right.
On the walk.
So here's the thing about racial justice. You all need to understand. I need you all to understand.
Don't do that.
Taking that copyright, boy.
But when it comes to celebrating myself, I have a lot of trouble doing it. I think a lot of people may relate to this, but I've always tried to not let myself get too high, because I'm always waiting for the shoe to drop. So I have almost moderated my emotions, moderated my responses to good things, because I feel like on the other side of that, negative things are coming, and that's just an unconscious bias that I have that I operate my life with. I think can limit the amount of joy that I feel, and it's really looking at my son. It was really looking at my son and seeing his unmitigated joy, and asking myself what was holding me back from feeling that started helping me try to break out of that thought box. I think I have denied myself joy in ways. I've gotten used to negative things happening, and that's something that I want to work on about myself.
That's deep, man. It's I'm gonna need to get these questions in advance, man. I'm gonna start asking you what you got planned. I mean, as you're talking, Jamyle, the thought that came to mind, just reflecting on the times I've had to do both, is like the reason we are able to celebrate because we have grief. and I think that there's there's a time for celebration through the grieving process, and I think it causes us to pause oftentimes and just reflect on the greatness of what we experienced and what we've been through. Oftentimes, when I mean, the closest person I've lost in my life up until this point, it was my grandfather on my mom's side about 10 years ago. And there are times where I just reflect and I'll be like, dang, I wish my grandfather was here to see this, man. Because I'm like my mom, and my mom is like him. So I see him. I have him on my bookshelf right here. I don't get teary anymore, but I do get very somber. And I stop and pause, and I just think that, like, but he's still alive though, because I'm here. And I'm doing what he would have done if he had been in this moment. I've had some recent circumstances that have caused me to, go through some emotional stuff, breaking down, and I recall I had a situation a couple weeks ago where I was like just so sad about something, my family, and I was contemplating not doing my work. I had some content to cover, and I said, if I stay in this house all day as opposed to keep moving, it's gonna be worse for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm by myself, I got stuff to do. It's dimly lit, and I decided to do my work. And honestly, it made me feel a lot better. And I think for me, and it sounds simple, but scientists can prove this: sunlight, vitamin D. Where you at right now, bro? Like, I mean, it's
That's why I got out the house.
I've heard so many people, so many thought leaders bring up the fact that, like, hospitals are supposed to be places of healing, but they're the darkest, gloomiest places. Like, it's the antithesis of what we need. So I think that the grieving process is countered by the celebratory process. There is no one without the other. And that's just kind of where I am now. Dion, your turn.
I think that when we talk about do I have the space? Ultimately, yes, right?
What are you holding right now, Dion? What's your leader? When you think about where space needs to be made, because you got a lot. I want folks to know who don't know you. What are you holding right now that requires your focus, your leadership, your energy?
Well, I mean, I'm running an organization. I'm the head of a household, and a big movement, even in terms of Black leadership and philanthropy in Chicago. You know what I mean? And is there space there? And have I created it? Yes. Do I utilize it? Not as much as I should. I think when we talk about having the space to grieve or to celebrate, there's a certain trust and accountability that needs to be in our lives and in our environment for us to actually do that as Black men. We're not going to celebrate or grieve if we don't feel welcome, like it's welcome in our life or in our space. And for me, I've always been someone who is extreme, who feels energy, who thrives off energy and loves to give energy. And even when we were talking the other day, X, it's something about grieving being not only a singular process, but a group process. Being something that, do I give myself space to feel? Yes. But what if part of my grieving involves someone else? Will I actually invite them in? You know what I mean? Will I?
Are they available?
Exactly. No. But before we go to the passive role, we stay in our active role of allowing them to come in. And so, I want to take accountability in the times that even before I question if they're available, it's on me to bring them into the portion that can and should involve them. And so, I'm not going to say that I'm perfect with it, but what I think, when I think about that trust and accountability, I think about when I called you the other day, when I knew I should have called you because it was on my mind and my heart. You know what I mean? And so actually taking the action, you know what I mean? Because when you grieve, I grieve, we grieve. You know what I mean? And so I don't think it's separate from us. I think that, the way that we've always done things as a village, and it's not to say that we don't have our own individual process for grieving. but I'm very in tune with understanding the role that I play when I grieve and when others grieve, and I could be a little bit better at that. I really could.
I
Yeah.
think go ahead, bro. Sorry.
No, hit it.
I was just saying, like, thinking as you were talking, Dion, that I think the grieving process too is so unpredictable because we would like to say that after a tragedy happens, we just need a week and we back. And that's just not how life works. Like, you might feel it in that moment and not feel it again for a month, or you might not even feel it because oftentimes too, like if you lose a family member, maybe it's not somebody you saw every day. You might not feel it until you go back to those situations where you would have seen them, and it's like, dang, So it really depends on like where we are in our life, and often I know for me, I have to keep moving only because now I'm at a space where the work I'm doing is consistent with what I want to do and my purpose and the legacy I want to live. But when I have that 9 to 5, like, I couldn't have, the news I got recently that I told y'all, like, I couldn't have done my first week of work. I just couldn't. I couldn't stand in front of them kids first couple of days of school, with stuff like that on my mind. And I think that even makes me think too that having the space to grieve properly is a privilege, unfortunately, in this country. Because not many places, and I think about our ancestors historically, the stuff that they dealt with, like. When I was just reading something about Harriet Tubman, and it said that she adopted a child, and she had 4 other kids who did not make it past infancy. And I was just thinking, like, when did Harriet grieve? You know what I'm saying? When did Harriet have the space to grieve? And she lived 90-something years too. Like, that wasn't the concept. It didn't exist. It was just keep going.
And think about what's been modeled to us out of necessity, and we no longer live in that necessity anymore. I have a mother who I've never seen cry. My mother who has lost her parents, I've never seen her cry in my life. And you take that and you make a shape as, this is how we should deal with grief. This is that we keep going, we press forward, we keep making things happen because that's what she had to do for us, the mentality she had to take on. But we are no longer, well, at least I'm no longer in that space. But I've still had these 35 years of modeling as to how I respond to negative situations. I keep going, I press forward, I push it aside and do what I got to do. And I myself ended up in a place where I had a whole breakdown around this time last year where my mind and my body just told me to stop. And it told me that I wasn't going to make it doing what I was doing. I started taking therapy. I started medication. A lot had to change about my life because I pressed so much down because that's the only way that I knew how to handle things, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about, the space part. 2 years ago, in the last 9-10 months, people who were really close to me, I've lost 6 people. People who I know by extension, I've lost 3 others. There's a challenge of having a society, not only a society, and this is the reason why I asked the question, how do you as Black men focus on this? It's one thing how society works, like that's the them, then there's the us. There are community-focused practices that I believe that Black people need that have nothing to do with the best practices that we are often told to embrace. So for instance, the ways in which like workplace, bereavement is a statutory term that talks about a person's relationship to a workplace and the ways in which that workplace may or may not provide compensation for a life emergency. That's what we're talking about. The question of how we actually work through grief has nothing to do with that. What that statutory thing of bereavement policies is about the workplace saying, all right, you can leave, deal with whatever you got to deal with, and when you come back, make sure that the focus is on production. That's wrapped into the compounding layer of what the ways in which I think masculinity is often imposed upon. The assumptions of what masculinity should produce is also imposed on men, where it is primarily looked at not as a way in which we hold our space, but in the way in which we participate in our communities through production. That is very different. The way that men hold grief is not the same thing as the expectation for men to produce something despite their grief. The way in which we, like Jamyle with you, the way in which you think about raising your children, including your new bundle of joy in the last week, is very different from how people think about your role to produce as a father. Those are different things. Production is not the same thing as presence. Production is a way you create and engage in your presence. But that is not the only way that we are people. And as when last week, when my auntie passed, man, you know, I had been walking with her for the last couple of years in the cancer journey that she was on. It was so reminiscent to me of when my grandmother passed back in 2016. There's a moment when you go into a hospital and you realize there's certain life things that this person doesn't need anymore. Like I remember walking into the hospital and seeing my grandmother's shoes on the floor by her bed and realizing she's never gonna need those again. She's not gonna need to walk no more. You don't need shoes at that point. You know, when I walked in and, you know, when my aunt said, I want to go home, she didn't want to be in the hospital no more. Because they had used the word hospice. You got to make a decision. You're going to be at hospice at the hospital, you're going to be a hospice at home. And I remember when I agreed with my grandmother, let's pull her out of this hospital and let's bring her home. And we brought her home and we got a little hospital bed made up in her living room. And I put this little African shuka, this blanket that she loved over her. And you know, she told me, she said, you know, I was like, hey, do you want me to let your friends know to call? And this, so she was like, look, tell them, don't call me. Tell them to come. If they want to talk to me, they need to show up. And I didn't really understand it at the time what that meant. Now I'm going through all of that, those mechanics of production and relationship with my grandmother, not realizing necessarily the mental impact of realizing that someone you love is preparing for their departure. And you are now an instrument of support for their transcendence. That is a hard thing to hold when you're experiencing it for the first time as a partly a caregiver. 5 years, 6 years, 7 years later, now my aunt is going through it. I'm looking at it, I'm recognizing the cues now. I'm a little bit more mature in that journey. But the effect of the experience is still what it is. Man, it hurts. It hurts to produce in those moments. It hurts. Like I was walking downtown Chicago yesterday, literally on a business call, and I saw two Black women walking down the street, and I swore it was my auntie. You couldn't tell me those two women were not my auntie. Both of them don't even know each other. They're in different sides of the street. I'm looking and I'm like, it's Auntie Brenda. And then I'm going straight back to the office to produce. That's why, like Jamyle, when you were walking, talking about being a dad, like I'm not in a mental state to be producing for them. You don't want me dealing with budgets right now. like that's the real of it. And I think about how in a dual income society with rising consumer product goods, with inflation being what it is, with the cost of living being what it is, with our, oftentimes as men, our identities and our sense of self being wrapped up in what we're able to produce for others, in the expectation that they have of our value. We need more Black men to step in and lead this community. We need more Black men to step up and lead their family. We need more Black men to produce. Oh, Jesus, what is celebration and grieving for us? When is it not about production? Well, knowing that most of us brothers don't have circles like when we're trying to create right here with the four of us, of just talking constantly about the unsaid. That's literally the name of this space, the unsaid. Dion, when you called me, bro, you were one of maybe 3 Black men I've heard from. And when you called me, you remember I sent you the voicemail the first time. Because I thought you were calling me about this. I thought you were calling me about the unsaid.
Yeah.
I thought you was calling me about something I need to produce for. And I was like, no, I'm just not in the space for that. Then I saw you hit me back like an hour and a half later. I'm going to check on you every hour till you pick up.
Every fucking hour.
There's one thing Dion's gonna do. Dion's gonna check up on you.
Listen.
Dion's that friend's gonna call you to see what's up.
Oh man, bro, I needed that. I needed that so bad, bro. Like it was like a cup of cold water in the desert, bro. And just like hearing what you said. And I'm not saying that other people don't feel it, but I'm saying like my grandma said, if you love me, don't call me. Show. I need to see your face. And I need to see your face, but you gotta have the time and space to do it. It's tough,
absolutely.
y'all.
But I think that
and I'm gonna move to
and even
some shade. I'm gonna move to some shade because I'm too hot
even
right
when
now.
Even when I was traveling, and Ernest about to get it too. Don't worry, I'm about to bug him too. He pulled that on me when I was traveling. You stupid. But I think that also what I'm hearing is an opportunity for all of us to create something different. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about producing as much as you really hit something that I really want to, like when you laid out bereavement and its relationship to producing in that moment. I don't think we necessarily need bereavement policies. I think we need a loss policy. And when you said like, hey, there's some things that I have to sign off on. That's understandable. But then also in the comments they said, well, yeah, there's 5 stages of grieving, and it's like, yeah, but what if I am not a linear griever? What if
Right.
I have 4 days in a row and then I'm back? What if I think this is an opportunity for us to create this Brenda policy that allows us to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from ourselves. And does that mean for some 5 days in a row? Absolutely. Does that mean 3 half days in a row? Absolutely. Does that mean going and thinking you're okay and then leaving in that because I think we're also active players in this game right now, and I think that what you're learning and what we all learn, we have a chance right now to really apply it. You know what I mean? And see remnants of it in policy, in a framework in our organizations and in our work. And I think that it's extremely important that we learn what we're supposed to learn right now so that we don't got to get this lesson again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I think about this, right? So care, because I think that's what we're talking. Care and space are some of the things we're talking about here, right? Knowing how to care. One of the things I was thinking about and why I appreciated your call, D, was because I had just been expressing my frustration about like my birthday was the week before, and the HBDs that you get. Y'all know them HBDs.
Yeah.
Like, we ain't even gonna spell out happy birthday. HBD, X. Right? Like Facebook got a thing now where you ain't even got to write nothing. They give you 3 prompts. You just click it and it all populates happy birthday and some emoticons, right? Like, we're getting more and more hands-off and uninvested in the life-on-life nature of relationships. And technology is helping to accommodate that. And the idea that work is life is helping to sort of institutionalize that.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to like Jamyle, you don't need somebody to call you for the first week, 2 times within the first week of your baby being born. Your baby being born is going to affect the rest of your life. You need people who are going to change the way they relate to you forever. Like when my mother died, when my father died, God forbid that, my mother. When my father died when I was 18, it affects me to this day. Like when I was sitting at dinner with my boy Thomas 3 years ago, thanking him, he was my business advisor. I'm at dinner with this man. This is another black man, right? Helped me out to help grow my business, advise me. I'm sitting at Eddie V's. I'm treating him to a nice little steak dinner, some wine, whiskey, all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, he got a phone call at the dinner table in this beautiful, wonderful steakhouse in downtown Chicago. And he picked up the phone and he said something, and immediately grieving started happening to me. He still probably doesn't even know this. I started tearing up the moment I heard his first 2 words, and I didn't even know it was coming. This was like 2019, sorry. My dad died in 2004. The first 2 words he said when he picked up the phone, "Hey, Daddy." I hadn't heard a black man say that in like 15 years. And it broke every piece of me at that dinner, talking about business and growth, and we clapping in celebration of growth. And I just like, damn, I haven't heard that from a black man. And that just like took everything out of me. You don't, to your point, D, sometimes it's non-linear. You don't know when it's going to happen, but the question of whether your friends know how to respond in that moment, like, yo, what just happened there? You want to talk about that instead of Justice Informed and your growth and hitting $250,000 revenues this year? Are you good, or how do you want to engage this thing? Because that's always the thing that we should be engaging, the you of it, not what you produce, the you.
Yeah.
And you have to have words for that.
I don't think that we, and I'm, even speaking for myself, man, like I don't really know how, like I just be completely honest. Like I figured out as I go, in terms of like grieving and even celebrate. Like I'm getting better at it. I think that I'm better at it now than I was when I was an educator. I think now it can be slightly more, I have to be more conscious because I have to literally say, because my workspace can be my home, stop what you're doing. Like the other day when my phone was being repaired and I didn't have my phone for like half the day, it felt so good. Like when I had a vacation over the summer, I was off social media for a week. It felt so refreshing and good. So there are things like that I know I have to continue to do. But I feel like a lot of us don't even have the luxury, man. Like, you think about us being in a good space as owners and people who are serving our community and thankfully having enough to get by and having family to support us. But I think a lot of our brothers don't have that luxury, man. I got to provide. And without having that baseline, you talk to so many young brothers, man, who lose friends, it seems like every week, every month, and then they got to produce. They got to go to school. School just started back. Why your head down? Why you talking back? Why you got an attitude? Why you ain't do your homework? Then you get thrown out. You know what I'm saying? And it compounds. So I'm just being completely honest. I'm taking it all in and I'm thinking because I wasn't taught that. My father
I wasn't taught
to
that.
this day is very, very stoic. And a lot of that is good in certain situations, but there's other times you got to figure it out. I never seen him cry. I never seen my granddad's cry. I'm trying to think of a man in my life that I have seen.
Right. And not only does that shape the way you think you believe you should interact with the world, it shapes what you think you deserve for yourself. Because when I hear about taking time to grieve and celebrate, I'm hearing I don't have time for it. I have to do this. There's some practical matters behind it. It's something that is good for me. It's something that I need, but I don't have time or space for it. What I don't hear is it's something that I deserve. And I wonder if it's something that we believe about ourselves, that we deserve to grieve, we deserve to be celebrated. And how do we instill that belief within ourselves? Because sometimes getting what you deserve won't be convenient. Sometimes you have to take what you deserve. Sometimes you have to inconvenience other people. You have to put people in an uncomfortable situation to get what you deserve. But if we truly believe that we deserve to grieve, at what point do we decide we're going to take that for ourselves and pick up the pieces later? We'll be late on this filing. We'll have to make up some ground when we get back with this space right here. If I let this drop, if I don't take care of this part of me right now, I can't pick that up later. Same way that I can pick up this work stuff in the production end of what's important about my life. I deserve to grieve and I deserve to celebrate, so I'm going to take it for myself.
I think even that point you just made, though, Jamyle, right? Having to take it clearly points to the fact that it is not an expectation of how we do life together. Like if I have to, when we use that phrase in social impact spaces, take space, make space, right? Take space, make space. That presupposes that community is not working in your favor. That presupposes a level of not aggression, but initiative that is perhaps counter to the expectations of the environment. Take your space, make your space. Like that sort of a thing means that others will not even expect that that's part of their commitment to you in the social contract. And that's why I say a lot of this has to do with like how we imagine the purpose of community beyond just production, right? Where it is truly just space making. Last week, I pointed this out, right? Like if we as men see ourselves and as Black men are told that our value, the currency of our life is in how we're able to produce for our communities, for our families, etc., and not in the power of our being, then the validation of our very breath is simply on the basis of how other people evaluate how much it is given to them. Now, I'm not saying that giving to others is not important, but I am saying that health is also about you. It's about me. It's about the individual and their commitments to us, not just our commitments to them. And right now, in the dynamic that we have, we would have to take space or make space, insert ourselves, demand time away, and feel guilty because of it usually. Feel that we're depriving a space of what we said our commitment was to it. And I'll layer this last thing on. I want to just pass the mic because I've been talking too much. I've been thinking about this a lot also just as in my journey, in my faith journey, right? When you get into the scriptures, you know, in the Bible, you hear people saying like, Jesus took 40 days and went up the mountain to pray. And his boys was down at the base and they fell asleep. Well, no, shoot, man, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? 40 days, my G, 40 days? Can you imagine your spiritual faith being that it's okay for you to take that much space to grow your spiritual preparedness for what you know is coming next, that your boys know is coming next, you talked about is coming next, and everybody agrees, yo, it's, absolutely. Go up there, leave us. Don't produce for us. Go up there and prepare yourself, and that's going to feed us later. That's not how a lot of this stuff works. Like if I left the social impact space for 3 to 4 or 5 months to heal or to engage or to even just think differently about what's my contribution to the world if I'm just thinking about production, I find it very difficult to believe that I would have a community there to support me financially and food. Like somebody sending up some food up there, somebody who's helping Jesus out. There's a community there. There's a community there. When he's pulling back, when Mary's going, I know that was a little off, Dion. I know. He was fasting when he went up. I know.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that there's provision when these things happen. When Lazarus died, right? He's sitting there mourning his cousin, grieving, and got the shortest scripture in the Bible. Jesus wept, right? Like there's a community there that's also practicing grief. When he was bodied up, thrown in the sepulcher, there's people there that already know there's a process that our community insists upon, that we pause life, that we pause the production for this important thing about living. And I'm just saying that I don't see that as a part of our community practices, not only as humans, especially not as Americans, particularly not as Black people, and especially not as Black men.
I was hoping that you didn't stop right there because that was too good, but you did, and you always do that, which is so hard to follow up. But I wanna note that what you just said is partially true. We don't see at every level of what you just said a process or a village. But I think that for me, I'm trying to create that. And I made that face not because of the scripture, but because it offended me. Because if you did, I don't care about anybody else because I'll make sure you eat. And I think that what we have to understand is that we won't get to the village scale grieving process first. First and foremost, you know, and we speak the scripture, but it also says, so a man thinketh, so is he. And so once you think that the village cannot respond,
I receive that.
You already started off a chain of events that is going to go in the opposite direction of what you needed in the first place. And so
No, I receive that. That's good correction.
And so with you, the idea of any of you saying, hey, yo, I'm finna take a month off, it has to be that first outer layer activating and saying, okay, he go eat. Or when he ain't fasting, he's gonna get water. And that is where, you know, I'm willing to stay in it, stay present. Because also, when you speak about the village response and you speak about a communal process, everyone activated when it happened. And so it was so easy for us to look at every other role and say, you know what, I find it hard to believe. Who gives a fuck what you believe? You stay present and you grieve. Because it ain't on you to make sure that you eating if you grieving. It's on us three to make sure that we on rotation while you are in your moment. And I think that we have to really understand and really settle in as these roles shift and what we're meant to learn. And I just think that and I told you this the other day, X, I've been to more than 200 funerals and lost people. And I refuse to keep missing what I'm supposed to get from it. You know what I mean? And you said, man, I ain't answer the phone. I don't give a fuck. I was gonna keep calling back because I'm fulfilling my role that you didn't even understand started, but you're not supposed to understand it. And so I think that when we look at what do we build in terms of a grieving process, it's also understanding that you're not gonna pick out and scope out the communal roles that support you. You're gonna be in the moment and you're gonna be present, and we're gonna be around you. And sometimes we don't know what to say, and sometimes it ain't gonna be a damn word said.
Yeah.
Let me shut it on here.
No, my
Nah, you
thought
spoke a word there, bro.
is,
That's a word.
I only got one thought through that, and in terms of communal healing is, for a community to properly heal, the community has to first admit that they're sad, that they're suffering from something. And I don't, there are collectives of us who come together and do just that. But I think as a whole, oftentimes we probably revert back to, what I was saying I do. And what I think a lot of us do is we cope with it in different ways. And oftentimes it's not healthy ways. And we don't even realize that's how we're grieving. So again, how do we, again, hold space for that? Because so much of our structures in the system geared just towards that production. And even when you try to put in a mechanism for healing within that structure, it's still a temporary thing. Like you were saying with bereavement, when I was in education, you had to literally prove that it was
You gotta send a death certificate. You gotta bring the burial program.
Send a pigeon, all
that,
type of shit.
because I could have a close friend of the family. I got, how we do. I got folks in my family that ain't blood, but they closer to me than my family. And if they pass, I'm gonna need the same amount of time. And I ain't gotta prove that to you, but that's just how we operated. And until we have to understand that's how the mechanism works first as a people. And then, one day, hopefully the whole structure will change, but it has to be us first. And I just hope we come to that realization.
I think it's really important that we model. I think it's really important that we model, because we have 4 Black men in leadership positions who are saying that I need to focus on my production during this time of grief. And that's setting tone for everybody who's looking at us, for everybody who works for and with us, and for everybody who comes after us. So I hate to think of it. I do think of it also as a communal responsibility for me to take that time for myself and turn off that drive to produce. Because if we're not modeling that, then when does community come around us, and when does that community expectation get created for Black men and leaders in their own rights aren't setting that tone for the people who are with them?
I think the how is the issue, y'all. I think the how, the what of, I agree with you 100%, Jamyle. Yeah, we do set the tone, and I think that's part of the challenge, right, of modeling that. I'll just say this, man, throwing out what makes it difficult, right? So we're all 4 Black men who are leading organizations and such, but for me, I started a for-profit social impact consulting firm with no investment capital, with 6 weeks of savings. I insisted on paying a living wage to my employees before I ever hired one employee. I was like, we gonna come in at $17.50 an hour, or we not coming in at all. And then I've raised it ever since then. We've raised the minimum wage at our company. We started at $40,000. Now we've raised it up to $50,000. My goal is to get the minimum wage in my company up to $60,000 a year for entry level work. The reality of what it requires on the pricing and revenue side of that is very real. Being able to create services and packages that can be sold. Remember what I do for a living, y'all? I sell what a Black man thinks. Who's paying top dollar for that? Who's paying for what a Black man thinks? It's very difficult to get paid for that. Meanwhile, we're clapping for everybody who makes partner at McKinsey. You know what I'm saying? Those people making partner at 40 years old, 35 years old, they're gonna make $250,000, $300,000 a year. They have more bandwidth. Leadership does not mean you have a certain financial bandwidth. It also doesn't mean you have the team support to take that space. And I think that's part of the intersectional complexities of leading while Black. of leading while Black man, or selling like what I'm doing for a living, right? Like selling what a Black man believes, liberatory structures for organizational design really are for nonprofits and corporations in a world where who the hell's ever paid for that? You know what I mean? Like that's the how is the hard thing. Like I wanted to stay away, but I got these documents I gotta send to my accountant because the IRS don't care about bereavement. I have to make sure that our client, I'm running a full executive retreat next week with one of our clients. I am the executive, their entire executive team there. I'm the one that has to lead that. Like that has to be done. There's a how component. This is why I say like, I received the correction that Dion was given, like so a man thinketh, so shall it be. I believe that that is true. The Father wrote that. I also believe that what Jamyle said is true. We have to set the tone and the model. The challenge I face as a leader, and the one that I think I see a lot of leaders facing is, there does need to be a community expectation, not just that the leader provides for others, but that others provide for the leader. And the space for that how, I think, is the challenge. There are individuals like Dion, what you said and what you did. I'm like, bro, you built different though. Like, I'm just being for real. Like, you built different. That is not the norm. You are not the norm. The way I show up for folks, I know it's not the norm. They tell me that. But the challenge is when those non-normal aberrations of community consciousness and engagement, like some of us are, then get into a position of need, it can become a challenge. The how is the challenge. The how, not the what.
And I hear all parts of that, and there's a certain level of anxiety that comes along with the weight that gets put on our shoulders. You know, being leaders of organization, there are revenue needs, there are paychecks that need to go out on time every single time, and the pressure of that, I don't think the average person can really understand what that feels like. Especially
I didn't until I got into leadership. I was talking all type of smack, y'all. I was leaders should be these bosses, until I got in this role. Man, I was talking all outside of both sides of my mouth, and I didn't know what I was talking about until I got on the role of CEO and founder. Man, I didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah. I'm taking 3 months off. I'm taking 3 months to be with my wife while she recovers. Be with my dog.
Who running the block?
The people.
The block. The block running the block, baby. Hey, Jamyle, that's the worst damn question you hear when you say you taking 3 months off. Well, who running that motherfucker?
Yo, the block about to be running that. They gonna be running
the block.
It's gonna be called the trap house by the time you get back, boy.
I think leadership emerges. Leadership always emerges when it's necessary, and people know and love what you're doing. When presented with that opportunity and presented with that need, leadership emerges, and you start to really see what people are capable of in those moments. I think you'll be surprised. Things won't be done the way you think they're going to get done, and things aren't going to be done the way that you expect them to be done. But things are going to get done. Like if you said, hey, we got these IRS files, and you got an assistant or something along those lines, that like they might need to make a revision. You might pay a little fine or something, but to me that fine is nothing compared to my own help. There are things that are going to happen that will be inconvenient and uncomfortable. This is not going to be without inconvenience, but I think that when you talk about stepping away and taking that time, you are not going to come back to a burning house if you have people who know and love what it is you're doing, because they're going to learn on the fly. And you're going to have to pay them more because they're going to have more skills. Yeah. And you're going to get to that 60 real quick.
And even with what you... Oh, my bad.
Go ahead, man.
What we're saying in terms of us being leaders, like we're leaders, but we're not the leaders. You know what I'm saying? We're not the only ones in the work that we do. So just like you said, Jamyle, there are a lot of other people in their capacity. They're doing the work that you aren't, able to do. So like you said, they're gonna rise to the occasion. And I love even how Dion, man, how it's worded in your company, man. It's like you're the chief dreamer. You know what I'm saying? It's not traditional. It's not the CEO. It's not the, and I think that brings to the, I'm sure you were real intentional about it because it helps other people realize that their role is just as important. You're the visionary. They might be the ones that put the action into place, but I think that's how we recreate this, because we understand that we're not working within hierarchical systems that are really native to our communities. So we have to kind of reinvent that a little bit. Not even reinvent it, but like redo what was already done. we were the visionaries, we were the dreamers that put this together, but then we're not the wheels. We might not always even be the driver. Sometimes we're gonna be the passenger. You know, 3
Absolutely.
months you're gonna be in the back seat. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Nah,
then
y'all.
X.
Yep.
Oh no. I'll wait it. We ain't doing that. We're not doing that. And now I don't want to hear no goddamn we overtime. I don't want to hear none of that shit right now. You walked off. Two things. To lose and to grieve is to interrupt, and I think that we have to understand that even when we're talking about the how, it is supposed to interrupt because we've changed. You know what I mean? We've changed and evolved into another version of ourselves. It is not supposed to be a seamless you checking back in and signing papers and sending none of that shit. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be pure calamity. When I die, y'all better act like the show gotta fucking go on a national search firm just to find my goddamn replacement or something. For real. But also I think that you touched on that dynamic, the other side of, the others making space for you. And it's also to understand that you've created something that has other people's love in it now. You know what I mean? And even through and it's always easy for us to tell each other that about our work. You know what I mean? Because when we're in it. But that is why we're here, to tell you that is not your love alone anymore. You know what I mean? Is it going to be a crazy day to get stuff? Yeah, but that's what this is about. It's about, like feeling the pinch, and even if your absence may be felt, it won't crumble. It won't. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. And that's the thing, unfortunately, man. But I think about where my company was 3-4 years ago. I'm just being real, y'all.
Of
No,
course.
the space wasn't there. The space wasn't now. I got team members who, when our head of impact, I know that our company's going to be fine if I'm out of the office for a week. I know that. I went away for the first time since 2012. I went away for two weeks around Christmas. Now everybody else was off too. Right?
When we were traveling, because you was
Yeah, when
partying.
I was
Yeah, I
down
remember.
in South Africa.
Yeah, we weren't
and
friends yet.
Ghana
I
and
was jealous
Italy.
in the motherfucker.
Hey man, you can hate from the outside, but you got to get in, bro. But I'm just saying, like, it took 3 years to get my team to this point, y'all. Like, for real, to get to the point where I could take 2 weeks. It took 3 years. 2 years ago, I tried to take a week and a half off. I went out to Connecticut to try to recover from all that happened in 2020 when DEI and racial equity jumped to the front of everybody's agenda, and my business skyrocketed 800%, and everybody was asking me to show up. My revenue model's going crazy. Pricing is all over the place. I've hired 5-6 people I don't even know. I'm dealing with onboarding issues and all of that. And I was like, I just need a week or two. And I go out to the woods up in Connecticut because one of my homies had a vacation house, and he let me go out to the woods to his family property. And then my boy Malik drowned while I'm out there on my birthday. And I find out on Instagram, scrolling on my birthday, August 20th, 2021, and everything in me broke again. When I got back to my company, things weren't great. It wasn't like I had the team I have now. We ended up losing out on over $150,000 of revenue because I took that week. Because I would have found things and identified things differently had I actually been there. It would have been different. And 150 grand, while you selling what a black man thinks, is not easy to replace. That's not easy to replace when you're an early stage company. There are effects to us taking space as leaders. That's why I'm saying I love this, the way y'all are really pushing back on me right now. I love the way that y'all are holding me accountable for an abundance mindset. And I also want to say that there are complexities in our production that truly do require our participation, depending on the level of maturity of our organizations.
Absolutely.
And I am just now this year able to take time and even have this conversation in the middle of a Friday with 3 other black men, less than a week after I lost one of my favorite people in this world, because of the level of organizational maturity we're at. But that's not where I was several years ago. And I'm just saying that that's the challenge of like the people who are still at that point in their leadership where they don't have a team, where they are solopreneurs, they don't have benefits. Ain't no such thing as a bereavement policy because it's just them and a part-time admin. like, like that was how I started. Like, yeah, like that's real. That's
Absolutely.
real. Like they eating everything they catch. Ain't no excess. Ain't no profit margin. Like they're still there. That's where community should be playing the biggest role to lean in on that.
Hey, I agree with that. I do, if you don't mind, do want to focus back in on you as well, because I think you're beyond what you catch. And I'm going to make an assumption about you, so forgive me. But in the past, not wanting to take the time you needed for yourself was a matter of the realities of the situation. But today, what I'm seeing is like you may no longer be in that same reality, but you still hold on to the feelings, the trauma of the past, of what happened when you took that time for yourself, and that is what's stopping you from pouring into you more than I could be wrong, but that seems to be more what's stopping you.
That's a good point.
Than anything else that's happening right now. It's the trauma of what's happened in the past when you've done that, and when we have a lot on our shoulders, that's our framework of thinking to begin with.
Dion a fool.
He read you so goddamn good, boy. Wait, did he say that I might be wrong?
But I know I'm right.
You gotta put that plausible deniability. That might be wrong, but who's to say?
No, but when you have that, everything's on me thinking bias to begin with for good reasons, and then you have it confirmed in that moment, it sticks so hard to you and stop you from doing the things that you do.
That's a good point. This might just be trauma. It might be just professional trauma, leadership stuff.
And personal trauma too, right? When you took the time for yourself professionally, something personally went wrong. Something
Absolutely.
that was unexpected, and then you had to go back to the professional end of it where things didn't go the way you wanted to go either. So there's a lot that would say to me if I were in a position like, damn, don't you dare do it, right? Don't take that time for yourself. Like you keep pressing on. But
that's what literally people tell me. They're like, "You're the boss. You can't take that time, and your company's too young. Like you're too." I'm just saying that there was some truth in that.
Yeah.
There are real material effects that you need to know how to manage. Like you drop 150 grand when your total budget's 250 and you lose 150.
No,
and you got staff and benefits and living wages. Like, come on, bro.
But I'll tell you this though. I think that I don't find accident in all of us being in each other's lives. You know what I mean? And I think that when if any of you called, right, and they said, man, we short 10 grand or 20 grand, right? From there, it's okay, what we finna do.
Look, Dion, I am short 30 grand right now. I see them doing bottle wars in New York clubs. I need to put on,
the
bro.
bottle war.
Y'all saw the shade room. Y'all saw the shade room today.
Bro, they was pouring the liquor on the floor. I didn't understand.
1738.
Bro. No, it did you?
How did we get here?
I said, bro, they didn't set us back 30 years, bro, just for one video on the shit. But I think that with you all, that is why, it's always now what? You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, cool. Man, we lost Auntie Brenda. Okay, we go figure out, man, because you ringing bereavement. And I said, you know what, you're right. When somebody hit me on a give or get from my board members, I could not justify it, so I'll take it away. So now, how do we again in the unsaid take what was said and activate on it?
What's the now what for us?
Now what? You know what I mean? Because if nothing changes, then one of us will lose, and we would have not changed anything about this process of loss or this process of grieving. Because now I have to think now, okay, I have a team. There's 23 people of color in my organization. How do we create something or have something in place that is just understanding, that is communal? And that's what it's about. It's about, okay, you know what, X, it's 3 other brothers right here. And while you go on that mountain, literally or figuratively, you got 40 days, and we're going to make sure you eat. We're going to make sure that you're well, and we're going to make sure that we're held accountable. Mm-hmm. And it's not from you making us do any goddamn thing. Because just because you wear like the 50 Cent, tight hoodies and shit, like that don't mean that we scared of you. I'm just saying.
Oh,
like,
no. I got receipts of you looking like 50 Cent with your fitted cap on in the car, bro. You listen, I think I have made it clear on this thing. I am from the west side of Chicago. Okay, if you want to roast somebody, you don't come for me, bro. I will light you up.
Hey, it takes nothing. It takes nothing for y'all to just turn on me in this group. It's cool. I love y'all.
And listen, man, the truth is not betrayal. The truth is never a betrayal.
But I think that I want you to understand that even starting this communal process, it starts with us 3, and soon enough, it's gonna be more than 3.
Yep.
It got to be.
Well, look, man, I'm running my cousin, who is the daughter of mine, asked if I was willing to officiate the funeral, which is a first for me. So I gotta work through that agenda and get people moving through this funeral on Sunday, and also make space for myself and get the eulogizing moment and such together. I'm making the greens for all these people for the repast. I'm making the mac and cheese for the repast. And what I need from y'all is to just show up and sing "It's So Hard to Say Goodbye." I need all 3 of y'all a cappella. Hit me with some Boys to Men.
And I'm wearing
that's the now what.
I'm wearing
the moves and all that.
We're on the west side. We're on the west side. So I need some not later gators. I need a 7-button suit. I need Steve Harvey 2002 pants.
Absolutely. All of the
and with everything you said, the most important responsibility is making sure that mac and cheese is right, bro.
Absolutely.
Listen.
Bruh.
Check the video on my page. Check the video on my actual IG page. I posted a video of my auntie Brenda as a tribute to her. There's a couple things that she loved. She loved this last year. She finally loved my cooking, and she put it. The last family meal she had was because I was at the hospice spot with her in the hospital when she said she wanted to come home, and I said, all right, that afternoon we're gonna get the family together and we all gonna just cook. We're gonna cook. We're gonna bring it. Everybody come through, whatever, And I had been working on this mac and cheese for several years, brothers. The greens had already passed the test. I got voted best greens at the Chicago Urban League with a 50-person taste test crew.
I need receipts, man.
Hey, no,
Ask the Chicago Urban League Impact Leadership Development Program cohorts 1 and 2 who made them greens. Ask Ariel from Hustle Mommies who make them greens. It's your boy. So my greens and my mac and cheese are Black approved. They are Wakanda fresh. So don't ever come at me on food or trying to roast me, because I'll roast you like the chicken I got. All right.
Hey, man.
Oh, man.
We all the way off.
Yeah.
I don't even know what we're talking about.
Look, I think the point is, man, we came on here to talk about grief and celebration. I want to start by just saying, Jamyle, brother, congratulations, man.
Absolutely.
Having a new child, having a second child, having Juli as your bride, and to be you two to be walking together, loving each other, and building this family together, man, is inspirational. To me, it's also a point of accountability because I look at how Black fathers are talked about and treated, and it's one of the reasons why I've not been terribly interested in being a Black father. Because I just have not seen in the world a demonstrated love for, desire for it. I'm like, I'll just stick to Black male production and professional world. Seeing you and the love you have, and Dion, the love you have for your kids, even though I heard you cussing them out while he was in the back seat.
Absolutely. Everybody heard that. Hey, listen, it's rough out here, okay?
Being in community with you brothers, man, and E, man, the same thing goes for you, man. Seeing how you wrap yourself in love and in service, but also to those who are personally connected to you, man. All of y'all are such an inspiration to me. And it's a bright light because I think that, grief, I shared this online, grief is the evidence of the love you still had left to give, that you can no longer give to somebody. Those tears that you're releasing are not just the enzymes that your body has to release as it relates to the hormones of stress and cortisol. It's also the product and the evidence of the fact that there was love there. And where there is love, there's expectation. And when that expectation loses its potential for an embodied receiver, man, that's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking, man. And that's what death creates. And I love it because my own grief I see not only as like hard and painful, I also see it as evidence of hope. Because I look at the life coming in, like for real, Jamyle, like knowing that life came into this world the same week that life went out, and both of those lives were a part of my life, bro, that just did something. It did something so powerful for me. In the circle of life of this moment.
And on that note,
Hey, don't act like Rafiki ain't the GOAT, bro. We ain't
Hey, Rafiki bring you out, be like, it's his time. I'll be returning to work after bereavement.
Okay, I'm with you, boy.
Hey, Xavier, I just want to thank you for your transparency. I know it's we turned the magnifying glass on you when you stayed open and transparent, and to me, one is helpful for me in thinking about how do I handle my own grief and how do I handle the own feedback, the feedback that comes my way. And also, there are a lot of people who can be helped by the conversation, just hearing you as a Black man talk openly about your grief and the thought process that go behind it, your automatic responses to how you're battling with those, and then the societal expectations and how that relates to your grief as well. Because there can be a lot of shame and like self-blame when it comes to grieving processes for Black men. So to hear you discuss it with us so openly, to me, it meant a lot. It meant a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to a lot of people. Thank you for that.
Facts, man. Facts. And just being willing to get on this week, bro. Like, we didn't have to do this, So
I needed it, man. I needed to check in with y'all and tell you what's up. And it was really Dion's call that made me more open to it. And just say, y'all, we on? Because I was like, nah, there's love here. There's love here, so there's hope here. I can still expect something. And there's folks who care. Because right now, I'm at a point in my life right now where, quite honestly, I feel like I understand best and feel more comfortable around people who are leading and carrying something because they know the cost. Like, that's why I was pointing back. I was punching a little bit on the question of how, because that's what we're responsible for as leaders. The what is different from the how. The how is what makes life hard. You can what all day. I want $5 million. I want a company that's this. I want to work with these. I want to have this impact. Okay, how you going to do that? That's our job as leaders, to do the hard work of how. And a lot of people who have only been responsible for what often don't understand the heartbreak, the challenges, the day-to-day difficulties of people who are responsible for managing the how of something. And that's why I love the fact that all of us are also leaders in our own right. And I think it makes our conversations more rich because there's things we already just know are what it is about life and leadership. We just know it because we're living it. We got to deal with it every day.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right.
Yeah.
With that being said, go ahead and do that sexy ass outro you do, baby. Let's go.
Sweet little dee. I don't mean to hurt you, baby. I hit y'all with that Jesse Powell, boy. We gotta get your media team like an intro, outro video that they make for this when we do come in with this sweet little dee.
That's it. We all pose.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy, man.
hey, nothing makes Jamyle more nervous than shit like that, bro.
I swear.
Hey, Jamyle, he be looking for that exit real quick, bro.
And shout out to Jamyle for getting on too, man.
Hell yeah.
Straight, I thought you would have been asleep. Like, you could have got an hour nap in during this time period.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I gotta go make up for my nap time. I took some nap time earlier.
No, naps don't work like that, my boy. It's over. Hey,
You got one more hour of silence, bro. That's 2 hours.
Yeah, see, I'm the only one. I ain't got no kids. I don't know nothing about that. Y'all get your naps on, and if you can, I'm definitely gonna
No,
get my
no,
nap on.
bro. No, you was talking about life coming into this shit. You about to have some kids. Stop playing. It's about to be
Speaking
some
into
more
existence. And
for
Jamyle
real.
made you
Yeah.
want open to it. He already thinking about it, you know.
Hey, and
Hey,
look,
y'all, we ain't
and
going
our
here.
kids,
Hey, this
our
level of
kids gonna be like
transparency is
15
different.
and shit. Your turn to be due.
Oh man.
Hey, so
All
are
right,
we are
y'all.
we so we gotta reconvene, but next Wednesday, then are we back on our, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we back on our nonsense.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, noontime, lunchtime convo. We had to switch it this week. But yeah, would love to, man. Let's do that, y'all.
Let's
So
do
I do think we need
y'all
to
follow
promote this a little bit
everybody.
better. Let's just post that thing that Dion gave us, that unsaid graphic. Just post that in the morning. Let folks know the day of. It's gonna be popping off at noon or maybe the day before. Get more people involved and all that stuff. I'm about to save this and share this. Tag y'all in so we'll
Yeah.
all have it.
Add us as
Um,
collaborators too.
All right.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I gotta take off right now, y'all.
All right,
All right,
y'all.
peace,
All right.
y'all.
I'll always.
All right, peace.
Peace.
Peace, brothers.